Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer and welcome to the breaking news. Today's breaking news is that along the area of the Don River inside the town of Smolensk, we were able to see that another major Ukrainian attack has happened on Russian oil refineries, and it appears that they've been able to substantially hit and damage one of these Russian oil depots within the area of Smolensk. We can see a clip of that right here as the fire begins to rage uncontrollably as the Russian Federation has now lost all access to all usable fuels along the entire length of the Don River, which has major implications for the Russian war effort within the southern military district, charged with the responsibility of conducting the Ukraine war. We can see and hear the fire in this video as it continues to spiral out of control, consuming a large amount of the usable fuel products that are found within this oil depot. Moving on from that clip and into our second one, we were also able to see an additional clip, far shorter, but letting us hear one of the Ukrainian drone explosions. This small oil facility, from what we understand, although somewhat small, is one of the few along the entire length of the Don River, and exists just up here in this area. Connected by rail to the rest of the city of Smolensk, and specifically into the larger port area of Volgodonsk, Smolensk and Volgodonsk served as a very important barrier for the Russian vessels that are traveling up and down the Don River. The Don River is a major economic artery and corridor for the Russian Federation within its southern region, as the Don River connects with the Volga River through a small series of canals here on the eastern side of the city of Volgograd, and also connects the Russians into the Sea of Azov and then into the further Black Sea, allowing trade with nations beyond Russia's borders, which could help them to support their war efforts. The Don River has been extremely crucial, not only in this matter, but also in the matter of providing more military equipment and generally more supplies for the weakened and heavily battle-depleted Russian army that is continuing to conduct its fight inside of Ukraine at the moment. The fact that Ukraine has been able to destroy the Russian refueling node in Azov, near to the port of Rostov-on-Don, they have now been able to destroy the Russian oil facilities at Kalach-na-Donu, right along this port area right here, and then on top of that, they were also able to knock out the oil facilities further down and at Smolensk, has shown that there has been a massive campaign by the Russians to completely knock out Russia's ability, for the large part, to conduct any sort of meaningful commerce or supply efforts along the length of the Don River. We also have additional footage showing the severity of the damage of what happened at Smolensk right here in this next clip. But nevertheless, I cannot stress enough again, this massive campaign that Ukraine has conducted on infrastructure along the Don River supporting maritime traffic will have a massive catastrophic after effects for the Russian military and the Russian southern region. This appears to be a duplicate of the last clip that we saw, so we're going to skip forward to this one. We see them showing the plume of smoke as the fire continues. And then finally we got one other clip a lot closer of the ongoing fire. Finally, we have one last little bit of information about the oil refinery, well, really more so the oil depot being destroyed, and we were able to see it from a car right here. It is one thing to note that Ukraine appears to be conducting very coordinated drone attacks at this point, and they do have larger campaign ambitions. From what we understand, there are multiple ongoing drone campaigns by the Ukrainian armed forces within the region of Crimea, also within the Don, and this is what we believe the different drone campaigns are culminating into. One, and most importantly, is the Don River campaign, where we see the Ukrainian drones are continuously attacking Russian maritime and Russian port infrastructure to attempt to deprive the Russians of an ability to be able to use the Don River as a navigable route and a viable option to conduct resupplies for the Russian armed forces at incredibly cheap rates, meaning that the Russians will have to now try and find different means of transportation that'll be a lot more fuel consumptive and a lot more expensive due to the amount of individuals involved in conducting the transportation efforts. This could massively cripple the Russian army going forward and make the war far more unaffordable for the Russian Federation's government. Meanwhile, another air campaign is going on with Ukraine's drones inside the area of Crimea as they attempt to find and destroy Russian surface-to-air missile sites, most of those now having been moved to Belgrade, and now they have moved on into targeting and attacking Russian military sites that still exist within the area of Crimea, and specifically around the port city of Sevastopol. Finally, we can see another drone campaign going on in the heartland of Russia, where we see Ukraine's drones now attacking and destroying oil refineries and any factories related to the production of war materials, such as weapons, rubber, engines, vehicles, anything along those lines. It appears that there's a larger and broader drone campaign throughout pretty much the entirety of Western Russia to knock out and destroy those efforts. From what we can tell, these drone attacks are ending up being wildly successful and may even be showing others that the war is not something that should be followed through all too well, as a bombshell announcement came out today that President Lukashenko, the dictator of Belarus, has announced a complete withdrawal of Belarusian forces from the northern Ukrainian border. We were able to get this in a statement today, and here is the statement.
Наши пограничники и военные перехватывают десятками, можно сказать, разведывательные средства, особенно беспилотники, уже на нашей территории.
In short, President Lukashenko declared that the tensions in between Ukraine and Belarus were rising at a volatile rate, and to make sure that de-escalation could be ensured, they were going to start removing Belarusian armed forces from the border region and deep inside of Belarus again, once again lowering tensions and completely removing from any time in the future the possibility of a Belarusian northern attack overwhelming light Ukrainian defense forces that are just north of Kyiv. This is a massive blow to Vladimir Putin's efforts to make sure to put pressure on Ukraine and have them divert their war efforts into the area of northern Ukraine in a fear that the Belarusians may start to conduct offensive actions in support of the Russians or in a united front against the Ukrainian state. This is something that is incredibly large, as it is once again showing that the Belarusians are having cold feet, and it once again affirms that there may be some major shakings and revelings going on within the Belarusian armed forces that are making it impossible for Lukashenko, even if he wanted to commit military forces into Ukraine, to be able to do so, as he could be in great fear of a possible military coup or some sort of a revolt, removing him from power and creating a different Republic of Belarus than the one we see today. This is once again a massive blow to Vladimir Putin's efforts, and it is also showing us that Belarus is not as gung-ho and as die-hard a member as the Russian Federation would want them to be of their sphere. Another thing that is really interesting is that we didn't get a direct statement on the nuclear weapons that are currently inside of Belarus and their future. If they're controlled by the Russian Federation, we are assuming that these nuclear weapons may end up being withdrawn. Or if they're being controlled by the Belarusians, we don't really know what is going to happen to those nuclear weapons. They may be given back to the Russians, but we are somewhat doubting that here on this channel, as the Belarusians have now been given a primetime opportunity, while already being a heavily hermit-like state within Eastern Europe. They've been given a primetime opportunity to be able to protect themselves and insulate themselves from any further hostilities or actions from anyone else in Eastern Europe, including the Russians. So we're not entirely sure if they possess them, if they'll give them back to the Russians. Meanwhile, things are not going that well inside the Russian Federation, as we did get to hear that a Russian businessman has once again been windowed. A businessman who was on trial for corruption against Shoigu's deputy died under mysterious circumstances in the punishment cell in Moscow. Businessman Igor Kotelnikov, who was arrested for bribery, has died in the punishment cells of Moscow's Medved pretrial detention center number 4. According to Russian media reports, FSB officers pressured Kotelnikov to confess guilty and testify against Shoigu's former deputy Ivanov and other high-ranking defense ministry officials. According to Kotelnikov's son, the FSB starved his father to force him to testify. Kremlin media said that Kotelnikov died on Monday, July 8th. He allegedly became ill in the punishment cell. They did not give any further details beyond that, but once again showing that the FSB is going out of its way to assassinate anyone who may stand in the way of the Russian Federation and may stand in the way of them going after people who are conducting corruption that is not the kind of corruption that the Russian government wants. But a lot of people are under the misconception that the Russian government is attempting to root out corruption in having this guy try and rat or snitch on others that were involved in corruption with him. That is not at all the case. The Russian government is a massive fan of corruption. However, the corruption has to be conducive or productive for the central aims of the Russian Federation's government. And if they are not, then that means that they will not want that corruption to exist. And corruption that Shoigu's deputy and this businessman were involved in were forms of corruption that were not benefiting the state, they were to the detriment of the state. And therefore, for that reason, they are being prosecuted for that point. And it also appears that this man has lost his life for that point, as the FSB largely deliberately killed him while he was sitting inside of that cell inside of Moscow. Once again, showing that the purge is continuing on a very low-key and unofficial form. Meanwhile, inside of Ukraine, we did get to hear that there are ongoing plots to assassinate Putin. Of course, that would be quite natural. And we were able to hear that Budanov told about attempts to eliminate Putin. And according to him, the Russians are afraid of losing Putin because he's the guarantor of their life stability. And attempted assassination attempts have been made, but as you can see, they have failed so far, according to Ukrainian efforts to try and take out Putin, and also other Russian efforts to try and take out Putin as well. All threats from the Kyiv regime are obvious. Therefore, the security of the first person is ensured at the appropriate level, said Dmitry Peskov. And this is a statement by the Kremlin about the statements that Budanov made today about possibly trying to take out Putin. Once again showing us that there is an ongoing covert war in the background as both leaders try and position their intelligence bureaus and intelligence apparatus to be able to kill the other leader and largely stop the war dead in its tracks or cause a heavy demoralization within the other host country. Moving on from that and into Poland, we also got to hear that Poland is going to be raising their military budget again to a whopping 5% of their GDP, according to their announcement today. And Poland is in the process, and currently is, and it's going to be now even larger, one of the largest ground armies in Europe. In fact, it is the largest ground army in Europe if we exclude Russia and Ukraine already. This is a major development, and once again showing that Poland is becoming the bulwark of NATO towards its eastern front, facing down the Russians and the Belarusians within Kaliningrad, and also along the Suwalki Gap front. Moving on from that and over into the United States, we also got to hear a very interesting statement today that the United States is developing long-range missiles, or extended-range missiles for Ukraine's armed forces. And the new weapon is to be developed as an extended-range attack munition, the ERAM, that aims to be low-cost, quick-to-produce air-launched missiles with a range of about 460 kilometers, while still the United States has not given any approval or authorization for Ukraine to use American weapons to strike deep inside the Russian Federation, largely making this weapon completely worthless without the official declaration that American weapons can be used deep inside the Russian Federation. We do not know why the United States would go through the effort to develop a low-cost, long-range missile such as that without giving them the authorization to actually make it worthwhile to use, but nevertheless, the United States is doing whatever it's doing at the moment, but still very interesting to see and good to know that the United States would like to make weapons that would make Ukraine's dreams become a reality, but of course disappointing to know that they'll never give them the actual authorization they need to make their dreams a reality of striking Russian airfields inside of the Russian Federation and knocking out bombers and fighter bombers that have been used to pummel the Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian soldiers for about 2 years at this point. But nevertheless, that is all of the breaking news that we have today. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching this channel and enjoying it. We are wildly happy and wildly thankful to have you all here with us each and every day. And if you did enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. And if you really enjoyed it, make sure to support us on Patreon. The link for that is in the description below. I cannot give a big enough shout out to all of our patrons, because our patrons who support this channel help these short war videos that we do every single day to be possible. I thank y'all greatly, because y'all's support makes it a reality for everyone to be able to watch this kind of news and to be able to keep this thing running. And if you would like to be one of those people supporting this channel on Patreon and helping these kinds of short war video projects to keep on coming, you can make sure to do so on Patreon. If not, I thank you once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor having all of y'all here with us once again today, and we will see you all in the next one.